Hello, my name is Justin Mujitz. I am a program specialist at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. And this is our 7th year working with the America's Film Festival. It's always been good, and we really appreciate that. It's been able to give us a broader audience for our Indigenous films. Today, I want to introduce Willow Farrell, Brad Heck, and Jaida Gray Eagle. So I would like to actually just give you guys the opportunity to introduce yourselves. Maybe we can start with Willow, going clockwise.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to the America's Film Festival and the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian for hosting us. And I'm Willow Farrell. I'm the director and producer and cinematographer of Sisters Rising.
Hello, and yes, thank you so much to Taffany and the Smithsonian. It's wonderful to be here, and the turnout. Thank you all for watching. It's been incredible. I'm Brad Heck, and I'm also a director, producer, and cinematographer on Sisters Rising.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for signing up and watching our film. I am Jaida Gray Eagle. I am the co-producer of Sisters Rising.
And so, like I said, my name is Justin Mujitz, program specialist. I'm actually filling in for my colleague Cindy Benitez, who was unavailable today, but I appreciate the opportunity to share this space with you all. So thank you. So we have a lot of questions. I want to remind everybody that you can put in your questions into wherever you're watching, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube Live. And if you want to enter the questions in there, they will get to us, and we can hopefully, depending on how many questions we have, we can get to everything, but we'll see, depends on the number. So the first question, I think, would be just how did you guys get involved with this film and get it started? Where did the idea come from and that?
So five years ago, I think, about maybe a little bit more, Brad and I were living in Brooklyn, New York. Actually, now we're in Vermont. And we saw Patty Stonefish's Indigenous Women's Self-Defense courses online. She was doing a crowdfunder. And because of her crowdfunding campaign, we learned actually about the issue of violence against Native women and the statistics. And we were totally shocked. We hadn't heard about that before. So we reached out to her and started a conversation with her and ended up talking about doing a documentary feature and went out to Fargo, North Dakota to film with her. And then we ended up meeting this constellation of 6 women, actually more than 6 women, but 6 women made it into the doc. And that's what Sisters Rising became, a much bigger project than we had sort of initially imagined. And then Jaida got involved with the project actually in an interesting way.
Yeah. So I had met Brad and Willow through Patty, and they started to come and stay with my mom every time that they would come through Minnesota, and we all got pretty close. So then after a while, I think my initial title was an intern.
Well, you stepped your toes into the project. Little by little, you got more involved.
Yeah. And then now today I'm co-producer.
So is this the first time you've co-produced on something like this?
Yes, it is.
And I noticed Tantu was also a producer. What was her involvement? Tantu Cardinal, sorry.
Yeah. We approached her we had an advisory board, Willow and I, when we started out, where we approached a bunch of authors and activists and folks both from Native communities and filmmaking communities. And she was on our advisory board initially. And then as the film kept on going, it eventually felt appropriate to make her executive director. And we were thrilled that, or executive producer, and we were thrilled that she agreed.
Were there, I mean, Jaida, as you said, you started it kind of as like an intern. Were there a lot of people that as it progressed, people became more involved like that?
I don't know. Willow, is there more people that became involved after a while?
Sorry, I wasn't listening because I was reading the comments. I'm not very good at multitasking. What was the question?
Sorry, if as it, like you said, both Tantu and Jaida kind of became more involved. How did, like, I was just wondering about that evolution in terms of more Native people becoming involved, or just people in general.
Yeah, we made it kind of a mission to try to bring on as many women and Indigenous people as possible into the project, behind the camera, basically. For example, we were trying to find an Indigenous woman with feature film editing experience to bring on as our editor, and we couldn't find anyone with extensive feature editing experience. We found lots of amazing up-and-coming Indigenous filmmakers who have done some editing work, but mostly shorts. And Rizal Benali, actually, who's a friend of Jaida's, she was interested in coming onto the project maybe, but she didn't have feature editing experience. So we teamed her up with her mentor, Jennifer Ruff, who's incredible, teaches at Tisch, and Maru Tisch for film editing. And so they worked as a team to edit Sisters Rising. And that was just like, we got to have our cake and eat it too, which is, what you always hope for. And I think, Brad, you would like crunch the numbers on our crew ultimately, like our whole crew. What is it like? What percentage women?
Above the line and below the line, it's over 75% women, and over 50% Indigenous.
It's great.
Yeah.
We've worked. We actually shown quite a few films from Roselle as well at the museum, so we're very familiar with her.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We were hoping to see her at the Native Cinema Showcase, but then COVID happened and ruined all of our plans. But then we have this amazing opportunity to see you guys on the screen from the comfort of our own homes. Brad and I, by the way, Brad is upstairs from me right now. We tried to be in the same frame, but then we were all squashed looking, so yeah.
I just want to remind people, in case they didn't hear at the start, if you have questions, please enter them wherever you're watching, whether it's YouTube or Facebook Live, and we'll try and get to them. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions, and then we can start getting questions from the audience. So the next question would be that, how did you recruit these women, or maybe recruit is not the word, but and also how did it must have been hard to have them feel comfortable talking about these issues.
Yeah, we started the doc by, as Willow was saying, meeting Patty in Fargo, in North Dakota. And when we were in Fargo, we kept on hearing about Fort Berthold, which is in like central and northwest North Dakota. And we were hearing about the large amount of men that were coming to the reservation, and how with it was an increase in crime and sexual violence and all this stuff. And it was actually getting a lot of national and international attention. And so we read an article in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and we started learning more about it, and we decided to go up there. And without really knowing better, we just went into the police station and asked to talk to the police. And
the tribal police on the reservation.
Yeah, the tribal law enforcement. And the police chief said, yeah, I've got someone for you to talk to. And we were sitting in his office, really feeling like we were over our heads. And Dawn White stormed into the room, just glared at us, and she can really glare, and said, so I hear you're looking for victims. And Willow and I were just...
We shrank in our chairs to about the size of peanuts.
And I mean, we had a long conversation with Dawn. We told her we're not just parachuting in. We want to spend time here. We want to learn people's stories. We're not just looking for victims. We're just trying to figure out more about the reservation. And I think the contrast...
Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but I think one of the moments... I just learned the term extractive journalism you know, like, which is so interesting because it was extractive industries that on Fort Berthold that was sort of creating the situation that made us want to go and explore the stories. And then Dawn basically explained to us that like all these journalists come in, they just sort of come in, they don't have any connections to the community. They extract a story and they leave. And what does the community get out of it? You know, like, is it actually improving their lives in any way? And it was sort of a light bulb moment for me, because I was like, I've always been just thinking like, well, the media is, you know, it's good to have journalists. It's good to have, and so this was like a much more nuanced perspective and we were like, no, we're not journalists. This film is going to take a long time. Like, it's not going to sell a headline. In fact, it took 5 years, you know, and it's more about, we want to speak to compelling, powerful women who are survivors and who can explain more of the situation from the inside perspective. And that kind of, we finally won her over, and it was sort of a domino effect. Yeah, other women trusted us since Dawn did.
Yeah, once Dawn vetted us, she started giving us names, and she started telling other folks in the community, and through her, basically, we met everyone. But yeah, I think it was that contrast. In fact, we interviewed the head of the DV program on Fort Berthold. She didn't make it into the film because we didn't have time. But while we were doing her interview, she got multiple calls from newspapers, literally asking for victims, including The Guardian in the UK. And so I really think that contrast, our long-term engagement helped. Yeah.
Right now, we're kind of we're in a unique situation now the last few weeks in terms of us reckoning with systems of oppression and communities that are not protected at the expense of other communities. I was wondering if you wanted to put this in like that kind of greater context at all, of how maybe this is, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So like with everything that's going on, so I'm calling in from Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. This is where the uprising happened. And I grew up in a small town. It was a majority of white. And I feel like I have a lot of friends that are really confused as to what's going on right now, because we were all taught that racism was over, right? Like, everybody's equal. This is a just society. Like, everything's fine. So everybody's really confused. Like, oh, well, what's going on? Why are people so upset? Why are people so angry? But this society was built on white supremacy. This society was built on the genocide of Indigenous peoples. This society was built with the enslavement of on Black people. And so I feel like personally that this film shows one of the ways that society is not just for all of us, that we're not all free, that there's still oppressive systems in place that are not giving us all equity.
Yeah, well put. Said it better.
We're getting some questions that it looks like a lot of people are interested to know more about the kind of how, I guess, the legal code. So we have one question. It says, I'd like to better understand how Chelsea Lauren White's code works around the US legal limitations like the Oliphant decision.
Yeah. Okay. So I need to preface by none of us are legal experts. That's why we were so grateful to get Sarah Deer in the film, because she's a genius. But I can kind of answer this, which is, basically there are 3 decisions that chiseled away at tribal sovereignty and jurisdiction. One was the Major Crimes Act, which put jurisdiction for major crimes into the federal government, and then federal government's hands. And then the other was the Indian Civil Rights Act, which they noticed that although they gave jurisdiction to the federal or the state governments, that they didn't actually take jurisdiction away from reservations. And since you don't implicitly take something away, reservations started realizing they still had it. And so the Indian Civil Rights Act limited the sentencing that tribes could do to, I forget the exact numbers, but something ridiculous like maximum 1 year imprisonment and I think a $500 or $1,000 fine, even for a major crime. However, there are there are some gains being made. Under the Obama administration, they signed the Tribal Law and Order Act, which doubled that sentencing that tribes could have. But the short answer is tribes still have concurrent jurisdiction. Their hands are tied as far as sentencing goes, but if they write tribal code that can to prosecute a certain crime, they still can. And I think that what Chelsea and some other tribes are doing is they're writing this code both to actually prosecute, but also more as a statement and to build an infrastructure so that if they get sovereignty back and their sentencing increases, that infrastructure will be in place. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. So Lauren's Law, which is named after Lauren Whitehorn, that was Chelsea Snyder's tribal law code that she introduced on the Fort Berthold Reservation. I guess it works around the Oliphant decision by one thing that we didn't know as like people who don't know much about the law. You can't prosecute something for which you don't have legal code written, and we just thought, well, duh, sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you would think that would automatically be something you could prosecute for, but you actually can't if there's not legal code written for it. So there wasn't legal code on Fort Berthold for those crimes. And even though she was operating under the sentencing caps that have been imposed on tribes, it's still better than nothing. And so she's kind of working with what she's got. But for tribes to really have full jurisdictional power, which they should have, we would need to overturn the Oliphant decision, which is kind of like the little plug we put in at the end of the film when Sarah Deer is talking to the congresswoman, and she says, yes, that is something Congress could overturn.
Sadly, we would also need to give them full prosecuting and sentencing ability, overturn ICRA, the Indian Civil Rights Act, and the Major Crimes Act. But Oliphant is like the largest, most blanket one, and so it is definitely the place to set our sights.
So just to make sure I understood right, you said that if they write in the code into their tribal laws, then they can prosecute?
They can, but only with the sentencing caps imposed by the Indian Civil Rights Act. So really it's more a slap on the wrist in a way, but it's better than nothing. I mean, I don't know exactly what the sentencing caps are right now, but I think it's $500 fine and maybe up to a year imprisonment. The Violence Against Women Act reauthorization in, I believe, 2013 increased some sentencing caps and fines for domestic violence committed in intimate partner violence, but it didn't increase caps for rape, stranger rape, murder, kidnapping, things like that, or abuse against children. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And people are always asking after the film, what can we do? And one thing that would definitely be good to do is pressure your Congress people, your legislators, to get moving on the Violence Against Women Act reauthorization, specifically the Democratic version of the Violence Against Women Act bill, because the Republican one is really bad for tribes and for some other vulnerable populations as well. So it's basically stalled in the Senate right now.
And so I realized some of the confusion is that even Lauren's Law could not be to prosecute non-tribal members. Lauren's Law can only be worked to prosecute tribal members. Okay. The sentencing is limited. And then what the VAWA extension that Willow was talking about is now, because of VAWA in 2013, in the case of domestic violence, tribes can actually prosecute non-tribal members. It's a really complicated mess. But overturning Oliphant and, as Willow was saying, encouraging your representatives to support the House's version of VAWA would be a huge step forward.
So next question we have, has there been progress made on allowing non-tribal people to be tried by the reservation legal system, which is kind of what
we've been talking about? Yeah. Another thing people can do if they want is donate to Native women-led organizations. There's Strong Hearts Helpline is, I think we can put it in the comments. I think it's stronghearts.com, but I have to look that up. But it's a Native women-run, like culturally sensitive, 24-hour a day, 24/7 helpline for anyone any Native Indigenous person experiencing domestic violence, sexual abuse, anything like that. And so it's really important because a lot of times Native women don't feel comfortable calling, white organizations or organizations where their specific situations aren't going to be understood or treated with respect. And so that's a really powerful organization. And then the National Congress of American Indians has good information on their website also. The National Women's Indigenous Resource Center, that's what I was thinking of. You can also donate to them. They're also doing really good work.
So we have another question. Since the release of the film, do you know if more Native women have come forward to share their stories, their experiences? I think this is also kind of ties in. I mean, if you want to put into, if anybody feels comfortable talking about the broader situation of missing and murdered Indigenous women, and I mean, your story was kind of specific to the Fort Berthold area, but I mean, this is a problem across the country.
Jaida, you want to go for that?
I guess I don't understand the question. So are we talking about MMIW or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the question was specifically if more women have come forward, but I also just thought it was a good opportunity to bring up MMW. So.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not sure that I know that more Native women have come forward to share their stories or their experiences. If they have, we haven't necessarily heard about it as filmmakers, but that's not to say that it hasn't happened. And as far as like the broader context of MMIW, yeah, I'm gonna let Willow take that one.
Yeah. Well, as far as have women come forward, at every live screening we've done so far, Indigenous women have come forward afterwards, as well as non-Indigenous women survivors, and expressed how thankful they were for the film, how powerful it was. Some Native women told us they had never seen like really empowered Native women depicted on screen. And so that's been really moving to, get that feedback. And as far as, yeah, I mean, when we were starting out editing this film, we had just like wildly unrealistic ideas of what we could include in the film. Like we wanted to talk about colonialism, the gold rush, extractive industries, and its link with violence against women, and the boarding school era, and the specific history of Fort Berthold, the flooding of Elbow Woods, all this stuff, and generational trauma. When we were starting out editing this film. What? I just heard myself talking to myself. Now I can't remember what I was saying. Anyways, yes, murdered and missing Indigenous women is a huge problem that also I think is finally coming into mainstream consciousness more and is more covered in the media. At first, I was only hearing about it in Canada, but it's obviously related to everything in Sisters Rising. It's basically Indigenous women disappear all over the country, all over the US and Canada at much higher rates than the rest of the, non-Native demographics. And there's, I think it's rooted to the same stuff that we talk about in Sisters Rising, the roots of colonialism and racism and like objectification and stereotyping of Native women. Sarah Deer was telling us about, I think, an inquiry in Alaska about Alaska Native women missing and murdered. And she said that, the Native women, Alaskan Native women, are being trafficked at really high rates because pimps see them as like racially, they can sort of stereotype. They can sell them as Asian women, they can sell them as Native women, they can sell them as Latino women, and they can sort of repackage them in different ways. And I don't know if she says this in the doc or not, but she said to us, traffickers have realized they can sell drugs just once, but you can sell a woman over and over and over again. And I guess violence against women obviously doesn't know a race, as Laureline says, but it is specifically and racially targeted at Indigenous women in a specific way in North America, and which it has its roots in the founding of, well, not the founding, the initial colonial history, which has been ongoing. That's a really long and woolly answer.
No, I think that was really good. I mean, the only thing I'll add is like a real touchstone and roadmap for us during the editing process was Sarah Deer's book, The Beginning and End of Rape. And I strongly recommend everybody read that book. It's incredible.
I'm going to get the book to show you guys.
Awesome. But the book is it's not like actually only about the beginning and ending of rape. It's about the beginning and ending of colonialism and genocide against Native American folks. And yet she does this framing around rape because it is so indicative of a lot of the ongoing colonization, the ongoing genocide, the ongoing prejudice. And so, as Willow and everyone was saying, get this book. But yeah, they're all interrelated, murder, missing, and violence, sexual violence.
I just wanted to make sure that people realize that this is like a broader, because like you said, I think that missing and murdered Indigenous women has not always been publicized or is as well known as some other issues. So we have a question. Sorry, let me get this.
When can this film be
viewed?
viewed?
Yeah, sorry. When can this film be viewed by Native sisters in the Pacific Northwest?
So if COVID hadn't shut down the world, then I think in the fall was when we were first going to come out there. But right now, we're actually really loving this format where we get an organization that holds a virtual screening and gives free tickets. And so if there are any partnering organizations out there in the Pacific Northwest that want to show it, we would love to partner with you. Other than that, part of our funding came from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting through Vision Maker Media. And so eventually it will be on PBS, though probably not till next year. And it's currently available for educational purchase as well. So if you're a teacher or your university or a library, you can buy it there. Yes, Willow.
Someone asked a very good question. Mary Kern says, Sisters Rising aired on PBS. If not, are negotiations in progress? Actually, people, if you would like to pressure your PBS strand, specifically Independent Lens, POV, or America Reframed, we would like to air with them, but we have not heard back from them. So I think that if they hear from people that there was more than 400 people interested in this singular screening. I think that there's a lot of interest, but PBS doesn't know that yet. So if you know of anyone at PBS, please put some pressure on them. Tell them that the movie is important and should be on PBS, because we would love for it to air on PBS. And we think that it will. It's just a matter of when and which strand will be interested. Yeah.
We're getting a lot of comments. This is an amazing film. Thank you. It's inspiring, things like that. I just want to remind people that if they want to put in questions, now is the time to do so. Also, are there things that you guys wanted to touch upon that we haven't talked about yet?
Just rereading When Can This Film Be Viewed in the Pacific Northwest. If any of you guys want to stay connected with the film, if you could go to our website, sistersrisingmovie.com, and if you scroll down to the bottom, you can sign up for our newsletter. And we'll keep you updated on anything that happens. If we screen on PBS, if we finally get to do the barnstorming tour across Indigenous communities that we were dreaming of doing, anything like that, we will keep you apprised of the news.
Could you guys tell me what the three of you are working on now? What you have planned for the future?
Jaida, you go. Tell them all the amazing stuff you've been doing.
I can't announce the one thing you want me to announce, but I will in time. So I just started at the Sahan Journal here in Minneapolis. I am the full-time photojournalist. Yay, I've got my big girl job. I am also a curatorial fellow at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. And I am the Crazy Horse Memorial Artist in Residence this next coming month, but I won't be out there. I will be at home because I don't want to travel right now. So, yes.
And Jaida, by the way, also makes incredible earrings, which are sometimes available on beyellowtail.com. And though they sell out so fast, you will never have a chance to buy them. But just for you to feel sad that you can't have them. And you've been making masks with Makwa Studio.
Yeah, Makwa Studio. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't breathe. And well, she can tell you about it.
Yeah, we've been making masks to hand out to the movement here. And then we've also been making masks to send to organizations that need it, and that's available. Like if there's an organization that needs masks, you can sign up through Makwa Studio's website. It's under the Ribbon Mask Project. And yeah, we're sending out free masks to people. So, are
those earrings you're wearing now yours?
They're not. They're Molina Parker's. I didn't want to wear my own today. So.
Yours, yeah, those are equally gorgeous.
Yeah, they're amazing.
We have a question. Let's see. The Library City College downtown will. Wrong question. So I live on the Navajo Res and would love to set up a screening here. Would that be possible?
Yeah.
Yes. Send us, if you sign up for our newsletter, like we described at the bottom of our website, you will get a return email that will have our email address. And if you could just send that message to our email address, we'll be sure to respond. Mathilde Walker, we know each other from since high school. If it's Mathilde Walker in New Mexico, I love Mathilde. Especially Dawn White, since how do the women feel about the film? The overall response has been really, really positive. Dawn White and Sarah Deer and Lisa Bruner, and actually Lisa said she liked it, and then we found out she never watched it because she didn't want to see herself, but she did finally watch it. We were like, what? You said you liked it. She was like, I trust you guys. We were like, no, you gotta watch it. Yeah, the response has been really incredible. In fact, we just did a virtual screening a couple weeks ago with Sarah Deer, and she said that her father watched it and he broke down crying, and she said it was only the second time in her life she's ever seen her dad crying. That was really impactful.
I think she watched it with her family on Christmas, which was amazing.
Yeah, I was like, wow, brave move.
Classic.
There was something else I wanted to say about, it was really important to us to continue, not just like build trust in order to get the material and access, which is what you hear about a lot from documentary filmmakers, like how do you get access, but to continue that relationship and trust, throughout the life of the film. And so we shared the film with all the women in the film, all the 6 women, prior to it ever being released to the public. And so we made sure that they had a chance to see it and approve before it was released to the public, which felt really, really important with such, intense and personal material like that.
We have a question that says, it took you all 5 years for this documentary. What were the challenges?
Oh my God, we can't tell you like half of it. Classified information. So much therapy, so many years.
Yeah, the main challenge was that we were all working other jobs for the income. And so although it did take us 5 years, we would also freelance here and there and do other work to try to pay the bills. And then the other challenge was, Willow mentioned it, how we wanted to tell the story of everything. And I think that the first assembly edit we made was 18 hours long, 19 hours long. And then our contract with Vision Maker Media through a Corporation of Public Broadcast required it be 56 minutes and 46 seconds long. And so going from 18 hours to 56 minutes there were a lot of darlings that we had to let go of, a lot.
Yeah, and that took years, I think, to clarify the vision and really there was so many beautiful moments and scenes that we had edited that just had to be left behind. And I think, we're also like newish filmmakers, so it took us a while to maybe with the next one we'll be better at paring stuff down faster. I don't know, maybe not. But.
And I graduated in that time. Like that's
you were also grad school too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were gonna screen it at your graduation too.
Yeah.
But that was also shut down because of COVID. Yep. So this is very sweet. Jean Boardman,
Everyone actually met on a film set in her house. Jean's house.
Jean's house, yeah. Jean. That was eight years ago. Brad and I met on that. Got together on that film set. TMI.
I think. Did we talk about what Brad and Willow, what you guys are working on now?
No, we were hoping to not be noticed.
We definitely avoided that
Okay, you don't have
Actually,
to.
no, we are looking for another documentary subject. I have a bunch of ideas for short docs I would like to make in this area, mostly like beautiful old Vermont men subjects. Like there's an auctioneer and like a metal worker but I think because we've done a couple projects about violence against women, and I kind of have been gravitating towards like really sensitive, beautiful, positive masculinity, because it's sort of a tonic, after at this kind of work. But a project that's not documentary exactly, that actually, Jaida, I've been meaning to tell you about.
So you want to make a documentary about Brad?
Like the most
but thank you.
You would keep ducking behind my camera if I tried to. Yeah, no, we're doing a short. We're collaborating with Sandglass Theater, which is a local amazing puppet theater here in southern Vermont, and with the local Abenaki, Roger, who's the head of the Elnu Abenaki tribe. I'm not even sure if we're supposed to be talking about this, but they're Roger and Rich, two Abenaki guys in the area who are kind of leaders, are going to be sharing the Corn Mother story, which is traditional Abenaki story. And we're doing kind of a hybrid. It's sort of a doc and fable filming, short film. So we're just embarking on that now. And we have to go film the corn before it gets too big, because we're supposed to film the corn as it grows. So that's what we're doing this week. Sorry, that was a terrible elevator pitch. We still have to wrap up the project.
I'm interested.
Any other things you guys? I don't see any more questions. Any other things you guys want to touch on?
Oh, just a big, huge thank you to Vision Maker Media for funding us. My God, it was 3 years of unfunded, just self-funded work. Though we did do a Kickstarter in the beginning, which provided seed funds. But Roger Longto-Shien, thank you.
Hi, Patricia.
Yes, I was just sort of, I'm blanking out. Patricia is also a local here, and she knows what we're talking about. But yes, Vision Maker had our back. 3 years in, $100,000 funds for production funds. And it really, my God, we were all like screaming and crying and with joy when Jaida gave us the call that we got the grant, and we were just like, Brad was on the computer editing Sisters Rising, and I was just like, no. And Brad turned around and was like, oh, I'm editing. Like, what is going on? And then I told him, and he started crying and then laughing and then crying and then laughing. It was really amazing. We are so indebted to Vision Maker for supporting the film and bringing it across the finish line. I don't know how many more years it would have been without them.
At the museum, we work with Vision Maker quite a bit, and we're always pretty confident when we see films from them, so it's always been good. Yeah, they're a solid, sassy bunch of Native ladies. Well, if there are no more questions.
It seemed like there was just one more last one.
Oh, was it? Did I miss one? What is it?
It has, what has been the reaction of Native men on this problem? And do you find men working with women on this? And I mean, kinda. Definitely it's women that are leading the march. I don't know, Willow or Jaida, if you all want to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, I've been going to rallies and everything, and about MMIW, and it's always women showing up, and that's kind of how our Indigenous societies have been structured in the past. Not all, but a lot. Women are called the backbone of our society. It's actually the symbol on my earrings. It's actually a backbone. So yeah, I don't know. It's women. Sorry, I'm just gonna say it. It's women.
Yeah, I do think men across the board need to show up.
Yes, show up. Yeah.
Yeah. Be like Brad.
Yeah.
Brad actually organized a men's protest against Kavanaugh back during the confirmation hearings, and it was a really interesting process. He posted on Facebook, and a bunch of men agreed to show up, and they did. And there was an interesting blowback from women in the area. A few women were commenting like, I bet these are all abusers, you know, they're just going to give themselves a pat on the back and then they'll bounce, you know. And I was really upset, and because I was like, man, we want men to show up, and then if they do, we smack them down, you know, like that's not going to work. And Brad was like, Willow, men have not showed up for so long. I think we can handle a little bit of, you know, criticism. And I was like, oh, good. I guess maybe I'm more thin-skinned than Brad. And I can't tell you, like, the feeling I had when I walked up to the protest, and it was like, I don't know how many men, Brad, like 30, or, you know, we're in a small town. So it was a lot of men with signs that said like, believe survivors and Kava nope and stuff like that. And I just started crying, because I have never seen men show up for women visibly like that ever in my life. And I've never actually walked up to a group of only men and felt safe either. This was the first time in my life, and it was incredibly powerful. So I hope that happens more. I hope white people show up for people of color more, which I think they are finally. And, you know, men need to show up for women. We all need to show up for trans people more. It's just, there needs to be more of an understanding of intersectional alliances, and that all of our liberation is tied up together.
And yeah, I mean, I do want to pay attention to Matilda's comment as well. Native men definitely are traumatized and survivors as well, I think, and I don't want to ignore that. It's just in our experience and Jaida's experience, clearly, it was the women who were leading the march.
Mm.
Yeah.
We have a question. How was the direction process with two directors?
How much time do you have? You're talking about, we are married. We got married after we filmed Sisters Rising. We were like, if we can do a documentary together, I'm sure we can manage marriage, you know. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of, Brad and I are both born on the same day, believe it or not. I think we share brain waves. Like, actually filming together is one of the most beautiful, one of my favorite activities, because we kind of like, it's sort of a dance, because we understand, we can just look at each other and know which one should go in for the close-up and who should have the wide shot. And we're both super sensitive. We're cancers, so we just, every time someone in our interview would cry or get emotional, we would cry like faucets too, which made it really hard to keep the camera focused sometimes. But it worked. And then of course there's like the fighting, which happened more, I think, a lot in the editing room, when we would get like attached to one scene or an idea, and then the other person didn't think it was as important, and we would sort of hack. Sometimes I felt worried working in our office, our editing office. We were like, what if the people next to us think we're in like a domestic dispute? You know, we're fighting over ideas in the film. But I think if it had been, you know, I don't know, having that kind of relationship, it's both good and bad, because there's no professional relationship. But at the same time, doing a film like this is so hard and so intimate. I think it helps that we are a couple, because we're able to really hash it out. Whereas with a colleague, you might just walk away and like nurse your anger in a corner, you know. But even Jaida, like Jaida's part of our family now. We've had fights and we've had to work it out. And it's, I mean, I just feel like we're all stronger for it in the end.
That actually kind of makes me think, Jaida, I know you went to school for photography, and you kind of listed the things you're working on. Are you more interested now in working on film than you maybe were previously, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been, I don't know, a lot of people like are really excited about this film, and they're like, please tell me you're going to do another film. And yeah, absolutely. I want to do that. For sure. I am working on some pretty exciting things that I think Willow wants to make a documentary about at some point. So maybe we'll work together again. Yeah.
Great. Anything else, you guys? Did I miss any questions?
I don't think so. I mean,
It's been great. The reaction has been wonderful. Thank you so much to everyone who left comments and your questions, and the comment here on the screen now is really wonderful. And it's so great for us to be able to have this opportunity to share and get some feedback too, because we were really sad when the pandemic hit and, you know, our 15 so festivals and screenings were all canceled, bam, bam, like dominoes. And so to have an opportunity to still share, even though it's virtual, which is a little different, it's really powerful for us. So thank you so much for coming and listening to us prattling on and on.
Yeah, I want to thank.
Sorry, I just wanted to plug the website again. And we're fairly lazy email marketers, so we will not send you a bunch of spam. We pretty much only email you occasionally, and then if a screening is coming up. So please sign up and tell your friends to sign up and tell your family to sign up and tell everyone about this. And bug PBS, like Willow was saying, and bug your Congress people. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
No, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, I just want to thank Taffy. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to work with Taffy. This gives us a great opportunity to broaden our viewership for Indigenous films at the museum. And this has been really great. It's been one of our first online screenings, so I hope that people have enjoyed it. Thank you for everybody for watching. But really, thank you to the three of you so much for participating with this Q&A, but for creating this film, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Justin.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Diana Vargas and Carlos Aguasaco, also for all your help making this so professional. I'm impressed. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.